Hi sweet friends, welcome back to Mary's Nest. Today I'm participating in a collaboration that's being hosted by Miss Vickie over at Vickie's Country Home. In addition to myself participating in this collaboration, there are a number of other ladies as well, all lovely, and I highly recommend that you check out all of their channels, and I'll be sure to put links in the description below to their channels. And the people who are participating are Mrs. Lori at Whippoorwill Holler, Mrs. Katie at Heritage Ways, Tina at Teasers Pleasers, and myself, I'm reading through the list here, and then also Teresa at Teresa's Stay-at-Home Life. If you're new to my channel, I'd like to say welcome, and if you enjoy learning how to cook from scratch, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel, and be sure to click on the little notification bell below. That'll let you know every time I upload a new video. I'm in the middle of making an Italian fish stew called Cioppino. It was actually developed by Italian fishermen living in San Francisco. I had to bring it up to a boil, and now I'm turning it down to low, and just wanted to babysit a little, and I'm going to put the lid on. I'm actually filming this as a video, but I thought while that's cooking, I'd take the time to film this collaboration that Vickie has invited us to participate in. And she's asked us all a question, and the question that she has asked us to finish, it's basically an open-ended question that starts with, why do I? I gave some serious thought to Vickie's question and how to answer it. And I thought, why do I? Why do I what? Why do I like to collect cookbooks? Why do I like to cook? Why do I like to make home remedies? Why do I like to garden? So many things to do with why do I around the house. And then I realized that it really all boils down to why do I love being a wife and mother. I was born in the 1950s, and I grew up in the 1960s and 70s. Basically, the 70s was when I was in high school and then college. And that was a time when really the women's movement had come into its own, and women basically could do whatever they wanted to do. And so, of course, I went to college and beyond. And I built a successful career and owned my own home, had a nice car, all those things. But there was one thing that was really missing in my life, and something that made me feel lonely, to be very honest with you. But life was going on, and I was finding that I wasn't getting married, and I didn't have any prospects to marry. And also going to the wayside with that was the possibility of having children, becoming a mother. And it wasn't fashionable really in the 70s to say, oh, I'd like to get married and be a wife and mother. It was more appropriate really to say, oh, you know, I want to go on and become a lawyer or a doctor or engineer or whatever the case may be. And so it wasn't something that I went around advertising, gee, I'd like to get married and, you know, I don't really remember the term stay-at-home mom per se. I remember homemaker or housewife. And it wasn't until years later until I actually was a wife and mother. And I was talking with my cousin who's a little younger than me. And I said, oh, you know, I like being a homemaker. And she said, oh, Mary, please come into the 20th century. The term is stay-at-home mom. But in any event, so my life went on like that, and I found myself in my late 30s and really wondering if I would ever get married and if I would ever be a mother. And then something happened to me that really sent my life in a 180-degree direction. I was driving home from work one night, and I worked long hours. I'm originally a New Yorker, but at this point I had relocated to the Washington, D.C. area and was working in Washington. And I lived in Northern Virginia. And I was driving home, and in driving home it was a rainy night, and unfortunately a teenager ran a stop sign and hit my car, totaling it. But what is really rather quite miraculous about all of it is that I walked away from that accident without a scratch. And there I was sitting on the curb in the rain, waiting for the police, waiting for the tow truck, comforting the teenager who was absolutely mortified to go home and who actually wound up coming home with me out of fear of facing her parents. And then I had to call the parents, and oh dear. But in any event, sitting there on the curb in the rain, it's like I had an epiphany. I thought, what am I doing with my life? I'm in my late 30s, I'm working all the time, I can't remember the last time I went on a date. This isn't really the life that I wanted for myself. And my parents were living in Texas. They were living in Dallas. They're New Yorkers also, but my father's work took him to Texas. And they had said when they first moved there, don't worry, when Dad retires, we're going to relocate to the East Coast. We'll probably move to Virginia if you're still there and working in Washington. Well, I think after about a week in Texas, my mother called me and said, we love it here, we're never coming back. Well, there I was sitting on that curb, and I had plans to go visit my parents. And so the next day flew out to see my parents, and I got off the plane and I said, you know what, I'm moving to Texas. So when I got back home, I told my boss, I'm going to leave, I'm resigning, put my house up for sale, put all my furniture in storage, pack my dogs in the car, and off to Texas we went. My boss thought I was crazy. And she would call me periodically and say, so are you over this cowboy thing and you're coming back to the East Coast? But I didn't. Well, in any event, I relocated to Austin, Texas. I had never been to Austin. Sometimes you wonder the crazy things you do. But my parents, who were living in the Dallas area, said, when Dad retires, we're going to retire to the Austin area. So, okay. So I moved down to Austin. My mother and father say, you're not married, you have no children, we really don't want to do the whole Christmas tree thing. We just like to go on a little vacation over Christmas. And you're welcome to join us. So in traveling with them, we went to the airport, and lo and behold, who do I meet? I meet a young man who was very nice. And we flew on Southwest Airlines. All together. And what was exceptionally nice about this young man was he was taking his mother, who was quite up in years, to a wedding. And we wound up all sitting on the plane together. This is back in the day. I don't know if Southwest even has this anymore, but you could actually make the seats face each other. So we were all sitting together, and this young man was sitting across from me. And he was so nice. It was a terrible flight. It was terribly stormy. And he was very comforting, and we got to chit-chatting and exchange business cards. And when I got back home, I had a few emails from him, and he invited me out for a date, and I was very flattered. First of all, I could tell that this young man was, as I said, a young man, and quite a bit younger than me. So I wasn't necessarily thinking romance, but I was thinking he would be a nice friend. Well, God had other plans. This fellow swept me off my feet, proposed marriage. We got married. Before I knew it, I was living in the Texas Hill Country and pregnant. And I was in my early 40s. It was a dream come true. I love every minute of being a wife and mother. I loved being a wife, I still love being a wife, and I love being a mother. And I won't kid you, it was a little bit of a rocky transition for me because I went from being this professional working woman to, in a very short period of time, my husband and I think we had about 7 dates when he proposed, and soon after that we got married. We didn't waste any time. I knew he was the one, he knew I was the one. But it was a transition. All of a sudden I found myself living out here in the hill country, getting used to being a wife and mother, 3 meals a day, wash, and this, that, and the other thing, and rather overwhelming, I will say. But I loved it, and I still do. I love to cook. I love to run the home. I love to take care of my husband, for as old-fashioned as that might sound for a liberated woman. I loved raising my son. I felt it was such a privilege to have a baby in my 40s, naturally. You know, it just was fantastic. And he's a grown man now, but it was a delight, just an absolute delight to have a child and be given that gift to raise him. And my husband gave me two wonderful gifts. One, because he's a lot younger than me, he gave me that feeling of being a young married couple in the beginning. You know, even though I was in my early 40s, I was married to this young man. We were a young married couple. People even out here referred to us, as the young married couple with the baby. And buying our first home together and having the baby. And even though an older mom, often quite a bit older than the ladies down at the playground with the other babies, but still, it was just wonderful. It was my dream come true. And it may sound funny, you know, to say that from someone of my age, and I'm in my 60s now, and you know, of the women's lib movement. But it's all I ever wanted, and it's been such a gift, such a gift. And I have a wonderful husband. I have to make a video with him so you can be introduced to him and hear him tell the story of our meeting. And hopefully when my son is home, maybe over Thanksgiving or Christmas, I'll have to film something with him so that you all can meet him. But yeah, it was a little bit of a bumpy transition for me. I did the best that I could, you know, after having been in the working world for so many years. But my husband is very kind and says, you know, I just pulled myself up and took charge of the situation and had my baby and took care of him and raised him. And it was funny because he came a little early. And when I was coming home from the hospital with him, the nurse said, oh, I never worry about, you know, sending home a baby, a newborn, with a professional woman. And I'm thinking to myself, where did they teach this in college? Where did they teach this in the work world? I was so nervous, but luckily I think they could see it. There was a Friday night that they were sending me home, and the doctor started, I think, saw the panic in my face, because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the doctor's office is closed Saturday and Sunday. And they were very kind to send some sort of like nurse's aide or something who I guess went around the area and stopped in and checked on me. So that was very reassuring. But so I just did the best that I could and pulled myself together. Thank God my mother lived in the area and was able to help, and luckily had taught me, you know, as a young child and young woman, you know, a lot of the domestic arts, how to cook and clean and garden and sew and all these things. So they definitely came in handy. Definitely. So that's what I have to share. You know, why do I love being a wife and mother? Because it's a beautiful thing. It's a privilege. It's an honor, and it's a joy. It is just such a joy every day to wake up with my wonderful husband. You know, God sent me a beautiful gift, and I know this is going to sound so funny because men make fun of this, but my husband's name is Theodore, and it means gift from God. And I feel like I went to the airport and God sent me a gift. Yeah, I'm going to tear up a little. But I just think it's so sweet that that's what his name is, because that's how I feel. He's really a gift from God. And so is our son. His name is Ben. He's wonderful. And I couldn't be happier. And even now, you know, as I go into my 60s and look forward to hopefully one day my son getting married and becoming a grandmother, I relish it, and I really look forward to it. So that's all. That's why do I. Well, I composed myself, and my husband came in and gave me a hug and a kiss. In any event, that's all for today, and I hope you've enjoyed me sharing my story. And if so, I hope you'll give me a thumbs up and share this with your friends. Maybe there are people that you know who might take some hope in hearing my story, and know that it's really never too late to follow your dreams and find what you're really looking for in life. And so in closing, I just want to thank Vickie for putting together this collaboration. I'm really looking forward to watching her video and the other ladies' videos. I understand that Vickie will be putting together a playlist, and I'll be sure to link to that, and I'll also be linking to all of the other ladies' channels, which I'll put in the description below. And I think that's it. Well, in any event, I want to thank you so much for joining me and for listening to my story. And please share in the comments below if you have any questions about my journey. I'm happy to share in more detail about how I relocated and how I went about that whole process and making it work and getting a new job and so on and so forth. But in any event, well, that's all for today. But I want to thank you so much for joining me. And I appreciate every time you join me when I'm cooking or making home remedies or thrifting around the Texas Hill Country. This is a joy to share with you, and it's a joy I've just enjoyed so much, so many of you that I've been blessed to get to know. It's funny to think that something like YouTube, the internet, has just brought so many of us together, and I've made so many wonderful friends, and it's just really been a wonderful gift, a wonderful blessing. Well, that's me going on and on. That's all for today, but I want to thank you for joining me, and I look forward to having you join me again right here in my Texas Hill Country kitchen. Love and God bless. Before you go, be sure to check out these two videos. I think you'll enjoy them. And don't forget, subscribe to my channel. Click on the little notification bell below. That'll let you know every time I upload a new video. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.